Well, I hope you're not too tired of my voice. Again, my thanks to Zhao Feng, Annie Pan, all the organizers, and to Katrin Antumaki. I'm very pleased to present this on our online exhibition on the Sogdians, which is the first actual as well as digital exhibition to be devoted to the Central Asian Iranian people who served as the so-called middlemen in the circulation of people and commodities, as well as religious and artistic ideas along the Silk Roads during the 5th into the 8th centuries. This was the program for the opening of the digital exhibition. The exhibition was actually funded by the Freer-Sackler, was developed by the Freer-Sackler galleries in Washington, D.C., but my institution, the Institute for the Study of the Ancient World, played a big role. I was involved. I was one of the 2 curators of it, in charge of the objects and what we display. And so we had the opening in New York at the Institute for the Study of the Ancient World. And the exhibition itself was truly a collaborative, an international collaborative effort. As you can see from the exhibition, just the names, don't bother with the names. Where are they from? New York University, Bard Graduate Center, which is also in New York, the National Gallery of Art, the Bodleian Libraries in Oxford, the Collège de France, the University of Bologna in Ravenna. So we had many, many different scholars contributed their knowledge. I hope this will work and you will be able to actually hear one of them. I mean, one of the beautiful things about putting it on the internet is that we can have movement, and we can have people speaking to you, as well as you just looking at objects. So I'll first take you through the structure and organization of the exhibition, and then talk about how we got there, and what there actually means, because originally it was supposed to be an actual exhibition, not a virtual one. And so this is what we call the landing page. This is what you see when you go online. And then, particularly once the exhibition became digital, it was a benefit because we could include a number of objects that would otherwise be impossible to show. The number would be impossible to show. We could not even get some of them on loan. So we were able to show many more objects and to a worldwide audience. Anybody with a computer can access this exhibition. But going digital had its own set of challenges. How to make objects appealing and comprehensible only through photographs on a 2-dimensional surface on your video screen. How to convey information in an interesting way. For example, a high school student whose teacher says, after the weekend, I want you to write a short paper on the Silk Road. And so she Googles or searches for the Silk Road and comes up with our exhibition. It has to be understandable to her as well as the typical museum-going person who has perhaps a little more sophistication, a little more education. So in short, we had to find the right tone to satisfy members of the public as well as those in our scholarly community, because we knew that, of course, all our scholars, our scholarly colleagues will be looking at it and critiquing it. And so we open with an introductory essay and then 5 essays. So who were the Sogdians and why do they matter? And explaining why should we care about them? And then there were 5 separate essays. The Sogdians at Home, in which we talked about the art and material culture, believers, proselytizers, and translators, the religion among the Sogdians, and how were they important in spreading various religions. The Sogdians abroad, specifically in China, Sogdians who lived in China, life and death in China. And then from Nara to Nancy, the heritage of the Sogdians, seeking them abroad from France to Japan. What traces do we have of the Sogdians? And then the last days of Sogdiana. Sogdiana, by the middle of the 8th century, fell under the rule of Arab conquerors. And gradually, this culture disappeared. And we wanted to document that. And also the rediscovery, both the discovery and the rediscovery of Sogdian civilization, mainly through archaeology and finds, other finds. And so as you saw, we open with these introductory essays, and you can click on any of them. Another part of the exhibition is just to give people who didn't want to bother going through all of this or just wanted to get a first taste, Sogdian art and culture in 25 objects. What 25 objects would we choose to convey the visual culture of the Sogdians? And then you can click on Learn More, and you will see them. Traveling along the Silk Roads, we wanted people to get a sense of the now this is where I need your help, because you can follow the trade routes, the historical trade routes of the Sogdians, and you can follow their journeys through different kinds of terrain. There should be, if this, thank you. Yes. Is it playing? Yes, and so, this is the first part of the trip, starting from Afrasiab or Samarkand, moving along the different terrains to the east into the Yagnob Valley. And the rest I invite you to travel on your own. And so here are the different parts, just to review the different parts of the exhibition, different essays, all of them illustrated. And then there are 11 sidebar essays that one can click on and read about the city of Panjikent in Sogdiana and Sogdiana town planning, Sogdian language and its script, Sogdian fashion, banqueting in Sogdiana. We have wonderful murals from Panjikent of Sogdians banqueting. But what are they really doing? What are they holding? How do you, what kinds of games do they play when they're banqueting? Sogdian metalworking. They were superb metalworkers. The 9 Sogdian surnames that the Chinese gave to the Sogdians that tell us where those Sogdians, in theory, tell us where those Sogdians who settled in China came from, such as An from Bukhara, Kang from Samarkand. We have an essay on Xuanzang, where you can trace his journey to the Western regions, into India, and back to China, bringing back Buddhist sutras. The castle on Mount Mug and its documents. This was the last stand of the ruler of Panjikent against the Arabs. Very, very important. And then an essay on Mark Aurel Stein and Don Huang, an essay on Boris Marshak, and we also have music that, not from ancient Sogdiana, but music that there is one part you saw, perhaps you recall, the Yagnob Valley. This is in the eastern part of Tajikistan, where the people speak a dialect that linguists relate to ancient Sogdian. And so their music and some of their rituals may go back all these years. So we have sound as well as movement. So how did this all begin? How did we develop this? This had been a dream of Julian Raby, who was the director of the Freer Sackler Galleries in Washington, a dream for many, many years. And so in October of 2012, we had our initial meeting in Washington with an international group of scholars from Russia, Great Britain, China, Japan, and then the US. They were representing a broad range of disciplines and interests in Sogdians. And Zhao Feng was one of the people who managed to get out of China because you can see the storm brewing. Those of you, at least from the States, will recall October 2012, and particularly the 29th, when we had a tremendous hurricane. And many people, a devastating hurricane. And some people could not leave their home countries to join us. It was not an auspicious way to begin the exhibition. We were all asked to come prepared with 6 objects that we felt personally really epitomized, really showed Sogdian art and civilization. If you could only have 6 to show somebody, this is what the Sogdians are all about. What 6 objects and why would you choose them? And we did a lot of brainstorming, a lot of talking, and a lot of fun. And after the initial meeting in Washington, we were hosted at in Hangzhou at the Silk Museum in January 2014. And this pointer, yes, you will recognize this gentleman and this gentleman who was in the audience. And so we had a number of illustrious Chinese scholars who work on the Sogdians meet with us. And this was our group with, whoops, sorry, in front of the museum as it was then. And there you are. Can I get that? Sorry. Well, I want this, but okay, we can go forward then. No, yeah, okay, so there we are. And this was our our team along with Dr. Zhao Feng. But then, just about a month later, there was the annexation of Crimea, and we realized that we could not borrow all the objects that we needed because so many had to come from the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. We had the cooperation of the Hermitage, and in fact, Pavel Laurier, who heads the Central Asian department at the Hermitage and is the excavator now, has taken over from Boris Marshak at Panjikent, was part of our team from the very beginning. But we realized that it would really be most likely that we could not get the objects, and without these objects, we could not do the exhibition. So what to do? At that point, in the fall, Nancy Mickelwright, who is at the Freer-Sackler, met our electronic genius, Kimon Karamaitis, who was teaching at the Bard Graduate Center in New York, who has developed many online exhibitions. And we then met again. Turned out to be a snowstorm, but not as bad. February 2015, so we decided that we will go digital. And to kind of understand what would be important to an educated general public, Kimon and Abi Babaleh, who is an Islamic art historian, held a seminar and used, this was a seminar on doing an online Sogdian exhibition with graduate students. And so they called it Telling the Sogdian Story, a Freer-Sackler digital project. And it was very interesting to see what they actually thought was important and how they would tell the story. This was very helpful. We gave them introductory lectures and they learned about the Sogdians, and then they took it from there. And using this Omeka site, they were able to do a very rudimentary online exhibition. There were different teams of students, and what they thought was important, featured item. Many of you will recognize the funerary couch of Ancha, for example. And then different student groups focused on various aspects of Sogdian civilization, Sogdian culture, music making, representation of musicians and instruments in Sogdian art, drawing upon figurines, clay figurines, and also, as you see, paintings from Panjikent. And then finally, in January 2017, the project really began, building on what some of the students had done. And two of the students from this class who really were outstanding, one graduated with his master's degree. The other one is still at Bard getting her PhD, but they worked with us, and we could not have done it without them. And so we ended up with a variety of content and media types. So as you saw, there were 6 essays, all multimedia, 1 geo-narrative essay where you can go through the various geographic zones and climate zones to go from Samarkand to Xi'an. There were these separate, what we call sidebars, essays, as you saw, on metalworking, on the Sogdians abroad in China, the 25 objects. And with them, helping to illuminate and illustrate them, we had 4 audio tracks of people talking, 28 videos that you can click on and play, maps, custom maps with showing 19 of them showing different routes, and 85 map locations. So when you look at an object, you can also click to see where it was found. And then we had 5 what we call interactives, three-dimensional models of Sogdian metalwork that you can see in 3D on your flat screen, and then 2 objects that you can actually rotate. And we thank our friends at the Hermitage for helping us with that. All told, there are 362 different images. Not all 362 objects, but certainly, I've not counted the objects. One could never have this in a real exhibition. But you make the choice as the viewer what you want to see and what will lead you on. And so here's an example of the map showing where Bukhara is. I'll go through. This happens to be my favorite piece, the winged camel ewer in the Hermitage. You can turn it around, you can turn it upside down, you can look into it, you can see it as if you were actually holding it. These are just stills from the possibilities. And then we also have various scholars speaking.
Sogdian wall painting has some very distinct features. It is almost non-Buddhist. There are some Buddhist sites in Sogdiana, but they are peripheric. And Buddhism was somehow the only foreign religion the Sogdian did not.
The Sogdians did not like. And so a typical page, as you can see, there is the essay, but then you can click on different parts. You can enlarge, you can enlarge the details, you can rotate some of them, as I said. You can link to other objects. There are, since we have a picture of a banquet, a Sogdian banquet, and they're holding metal objects, you can then click on the essay on metalwork, or you can click on the essay on banqueting. Again, you can enlarge these objects, you can rotate that cup, and there is also, the cup is in the Freer Sackler Gallery, and the curator, Keith Wilson, you can see him talking about how it's made, which is very interesting. There's a link to the sidebar essay on Sogdian metalworking. This was the rotatable and 3-dimensional ewer, and it's my favorite piece, so they had me talk about why it's my favorite piece. And then for footnotes, this is not meant to be a scholarly, but a well-informed exhibition, so you can click on footnotes only if you want to read them. And similarly, there are video clips, and you can understand what all these different panels are of the Blue Hall paintings. And total, these are all the different links that were made. And I want to thank you very much for your time, and these are the main curators and people responsible for the exhibition, and our main international partners, including the Hermitage. And I was hoping that you would, thank you very much. What I have to say, what I neglected to do was to give you the actual site, but I'll put it on and post it.